Welcome to Nightlight. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights, covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other light-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
I hope everyone enjoyed the weekend. I'm at Dave Spinks at the Mothman Festival last year, and he will be our guest tonight. I'm kind of like, as soon as I went around the corner by the Mothman statue, Dave and Jenny pulled up in their big truck, and somehow Jenny and I ended up unloading like all the merch stuff while Dave and kind of helped set up the tent, and Dave was kind of meeting everyone. So I really don't know how that happened, but that was the set, like how we got together for tonight's show, and he was a really nice guy, very informative. He has several fascinating books. We'll be focusing mainly on West Virginia Dogman tonight, but there's other books we're going to get into. His buddy Ron Lanham and Ron's artwork that has been contributed to his books, and just really so many nice people down there at that festival, and I'm glad we can keep the conversations going throughout the year. But I'm sure a lot of the viewers have seen Dave on History Channel, Discovery Channel, Travel Channel shows discussing paranormal events. Let's see, he has several books on West Virginia cryptids and UFOs. He's a paranormal investigator, and he's also an amateur chef. We'll be reviewing that at some point later tonight. We'll also be discussing his upcoming conference. He's been appearing at a couple of the spring conferences. You got the Flatwoods Monster one coming up. So if you want to get a good dose of paranormal topics, tonight's a perfect introduction to Dave's expertise in the topics, and you can see him at many of these conferences throughout the state, and you can find him on Facebook at DS World of Weird, and his website is Paranormal investigator.com. Hi, Dave. How are you?
Hey, how you doing, Mark?
Oh, I'm fine. I'm glad you're here. I've been looking forward to this show since September. Let me just kind of jump into your West Virginia Dogman book, and we have. We're going to segue into all kinds of other cryptid type topics tonight. But let's kind of look at the background that let's see. Ken Gerhard wrote the foreword for your book, so you do get a real cryptid researcher, zoo volunteer, providing a really interesting foreword to your book. So you have lots of significant names in the cryptid community contributing to your book.
Yeah, I mean, we're roundabout friends in all these circles. We try to help each other out and work together, when we can. And, it's all about finding answers. So there's a whole bunch of people in the community that are real good people that are more than willing to help out people, whether it's writing a foreword or, if you capture a piece of evidence and you want other eyes to check it out who are in the know and, who've been doing this stuff a long time, you want to have those people involved with, some of your work. So, Ken's a very well-known cryptid researcher, and, he was at the top of the list when I decided to write this book as to writing a foreword. Now, my reputation stands for itself. People know that I'm the real deal. I'm a boots on the ground guy, and I'm out there doing it. So, I don't usually have any problems when I want to reach out and say, hey, would you mind? I'm doing this book on this topic. Would you please write a foreword for me? So, so that's just kind of how it went. And, Ken's very well respected in the field, and I was honored to have him write the foreword for the book.
And as kind of get into the early history of these werewolves and dogmen, this story goes back, really far in time. Can you tell us? Just give us a little background on that topic.
I don't want to talk about the whole book because obviously I want people to read the book, but I don't want to give them too much information. First and foremost, there's not a lot of dogman history in West Virginia, okay, but we do have several creatures that have been reported for hundreds of years in the Mountain State, and they have various names. There's hellhound sightings, there's dogman sightings, there's werewolf-type sightings, and there's the snarly, the white thing, and many more. So the black dogs as well. So, no one had ever written a dogman-type book that was solely the whole topic in West Virginia. So, and I had investigated several reported sightings over the years in my investigations, and I said, there's enough stuff here to do a small book on it. So I went ahead and did the book and talked about some of my cases. I got also with Jody Cook. He had a couple of cases that were reported to his Dogman group, and I got with him, and he said, yeah, sure, you can use these cases. And some of them I already had, but there's a couple in there that I didn't have. So, we compiled a list of what we thought were legit sightings and put them in the book, along with my investigations and some of the more infamous werewolf/dogman type cases here in West Virginia. So that's really how it all came about. And I mean, who's not fascinated by werewolves and dogman type creatures? I think it's fascinating. The book does, these sightings have gone back, like you said, for thousands of years. There was documented sightings of these type of creatures even before Christ. And if you look up some of the historical nomenclature on it, there was reported by many famous explorers over the years too, in the ancient times of a dogman race, of beings, and people had many encounters with these creatures, and they were said to live way back in these certain mountains, and they would trade things for weapons from a certain king and all kinds of really cool stuff. And one of the most fascinating stories I came across, if you subscribe to the Christian faith and if you know who St. Christopher is, he was reported to be a dogman. And he had God. The story kind of says in a roundabout way, God showed favor upon him, and he was turned into a man. And some of these beings are reported to eat men and people. So they were a pretty violent race of beings, so to speak. So and the whole werewolf, the Hollywoodified version is not this really what I'm talking about. They're in the book I also touch base on modern day wolf cults that do exist to this day, just like vampire cults. They're out there, and there are people out there that truly believe that they are lichens and that they are werewolves. And there was Nazis the Nazis had a dogman soldier unit, and much more. I try to touch base just to give folks a little bit of history on some of this stuff, and then go into the sightings and so on and so forth here in West Virginia and encounters people I've reported over the years. So it's a pretty fascinating topic.
It is. We've done quite a few shows on cryptids, the possibility of dinosaurs living up until today. The Bigfoot creatures, the marine creatures. It's becoming more of an interest to me than other topics that fascinated me a while ago. It seems like there are the ancient artwork depicts things that we don't understand, and I think that's what is really putting the hooks into me, like or you're talking about St. Christopher. You can look up when D.A. Roberts was a guest with us, he was talking about that, and you can look up St. Christopher.
Yeah, there's famous paintings and artwork of him as a dogman in a priestly robe, as well as another famous artwork with him, as the human form of him with some dogmen standing off to the left. So it's pretty fascinating. And here's the thing: when you talk about the ancient art, it's out there, and you got to pay attention to the Native American lore, because that lore, people only drew and painted what they saw. They didn't really have a way to, obviously they couldn't take pictures or describe it the way we do. They just drew it and painted it. So when you're looking at these cultures that are tens of thousands of years old, and you find these cave artworks and these artworks on big boulders and so on and so forth, on pottery even in some cases, you have to really pay attention to that, because that was their way of recording their history and what they experienced and what they saw, whether it was in a vision or whether it happened to them in real life. So you have to pay attention to that stuff, and it's the same way when you're talking about Bigfoot with me, because these ancient artworks, there's Bigfoots and other creatures all over the world. So, you really, that's the way I like to deal with it, and to say that, hey, there's something to this, because ancient peoples drew these things on art, in art, various art forms, on cave walls or on boulders. They took and chiseled them in there and everything else. So, it's fascinating stuff. You have to really pay attention to the native peoples.
I think when Max and Brian were guests, a year or so ago, and I got into the petroglyphs of what looks like a mermaid that was carved into, chiseled into rock by East Liverpool, Ohio. So you have to wonder what kind of fish from, just say like 1400 AD look like that. What person who carved it go on some like trade mission to Florida and saw a manatee and came back, and it's like, oh, hey, I'm going to spend devote a lot of time chiseling into a rock with another rock, and if you're going to invest that much time, you want it to say something, but was it just something from a dream? I don't know, but why is there almost like an exact replica of a manatee this far up the Ohio River?
Right. And here's the thing, Mark. They're discovering new species on the planet, in the oceans, on the land, pretty much weekly, and it's been going on forever. So there's stuff out there that we just don't understand. There's stuff out there that's hiding in plain sight, because most people don't go out at night. They're in their houses. They're on their 9-to-5 job. They're got their face buried in the cell phone, taking care of the kids, whatever the case. And, a lot of these creatures are nocturnal. And, I'd venture to say that most people don't know too many people that run through the woods in the middle of the night. So, that's usually when these creatures are seen. It's crossing the road, or somebody might be out, going deer hunting early in the morning before daybreak, and they run across one, or coming out of the woods at night, or some loggers are out in the woods, way out in the middle of nowhere, and they have an encounter or a sighting. So, they're not something that happens regularly because of that. Also, numbers-wise, whatever some of these creatures are, there's probably not many of them. They're few in number, but they're still out there. So, when it comes to Dogman, Dogman's a whole different animal than, say, Bigfoot or Mothman or whatever. But these encounters have been reported for thousands of years with these creatures. So what are we dealing with here? Are we dealing with some kind of demonic creature, or are we dealing with a real flesh and blood type creature that, is running around out there? Who knows? Until it goes with anything, until we have a body to study, then it's just another story, or an encounter or an sighting. So it's still fascinating stuff. And when it comes to canids in general, there's all kinds of stories about these black dogs, these hellhounds, and so many other ones. And I truly feel I know I saw what West Virginians call the white thing one night when I was still in law enforcement. I was coming home from work. It was about 3 a.m, and it was real foggy on a 4-lane road. And the biggest solid white wolf walked right out, and I was only going like 20 because I couldn't see that good. I could only see about 20 feet in front of me. I was going maybe 20, 25 miles an hour, and the hugest, most enormous wolf you can imagine just walks out right in front of my truck, and I stopped in the middle of the road, and we made eye. The thing looked at me dead in the face, had bright yellow eyes, and we made eye contact for about 10, 15 seconds, and then it turned and just walked off the road, and I'm like, am I really seeing this right now? You know, what is going on? And this thing was huge. I mean, it was massive. And, you know, so I was like, must be the white thing everybody talks about for generations here in West Virginia. Because we're not known for wolves. You know, in the old days, there was wolves, timber wolves here, and they have made a pretty significant comeback and have been seen as far as the east coast of the United States. So, but this was no timber wolf. This thing was way bigger. It was solid white in color, and it was massive. So, you know, it was one of those times when you're in the right place at the right time or the wrong place at the right time, whatever way you want to look at it. But yeah, it was you know, the hair on my arm stood up on my neck, and I was like, wow, that was trippy. That was trippy. So, but you know, when you have an encounter or a sighting like that, you're just kind of, you second guess. Okay, did I just really see that? You know, did this really happen? You know, because I was just stunned. You know, so it was pretty fascinating. And that was many years ago. That was probably like 2006 when or somewhere around there. I can't remember the exact year, but I did see what I feel was what they call the white thing here in West Virginia. So another strange wolf type creature that's reported here.
Is there if you look at all the the different types of like the wolf family, what's that one big, really big dog? It kind of looks like a polar bear. But if you look at like all like the wolf family and other related animals, is there anything close to what we know versus what you saw?
I mean, you know, they talk about the dire wolves and these ginormous black wolves and stuff that are seen around the world and stuff. But I mean,
that's more prehistoric. And the
right,
dire wolves.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. And that, you know, that the one I saw was no near the size of those reports of those, but it was, I mean, it was bigger than any dog I've ever seen, you know, way bigger. And it was a straight up wolf. I mean, there was no doubt about it. You know, it had all the characteristics of a wolf, not a dog. The eyes were totally different than a normal domesticated dog. And I made direct eye contact, you know, so it was massive. I'm trying to think of the name of those dogs that are really big, and they're white and they're kind of shaggy, but they're really big dogs. This thing was bigger than that easily.
Yeah, is this some kind of like Irish dog?
I can't think of it off the top of my head, but they're big, huge white dogs, and they have like a real fluffy coat.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a sheep dog or nothing. It's bigger than those. But what I saw was at least.
Is that a wolfhound?
Yeah, it could be. I guess I don't know.
The Irish wolfhound.
There's the Irish wolfhounds. It was bigger than one of those. So I mean, it was just massive. So you know, it was kind of cool to having researched and investigated these things, actually getting to see something like that. Just on pure happenstance in the middle of the night one night coming home from work. So, but you know, it just fascinated me because you know I've researched these stories for many years and also investigated some reports of various type of wolf type creatures. You know, dogman, werewolves, sightings in the air. And there's some really good ones in the book. You know, there's one from a prosecuting attorney. I can't say his name and what county he's in, but he's a prosecuting attorney. There's some from law enforcement officers. There's other from, you know, people from all walks of life, all types of jobs and backgrounds. So, and you know, and that's how I approach all my books, Mark. You know, I kind of write from a law enforcement standpoint. You know, this is where I was. This is what I was doing. This is what I got. Make up your own mind, you know. And or Joe Blow reported this to me, and I went out and investigated. This is, you know, what I found, or I didn't find anything, or whatever the case. So, and then there's some historical reports. You know, there was a big rash of these wolf attacks in Webster County in the 39 and 40 here in West Virginia. So much so that, you know, people's livestock were being ripped apart and they couldn't figure out what was doing it. And there were some reports of a dogman-like creature running on two legs. Numerous eyewitnesses saw this thing, so they brought in all these hunters. The whole place was a madhouse for weeks with people trying to hunt this thing down. And nothing was ever captured or killed or anything other than a coyote. So, you know, but coyotes couldn't have done some of the damage that was in some of the reports. So, you know, that's just another historical aspect of some of these sightings in West Virginia.
Okay, and you were just talking about, you know, the cattle being killed in some instances. You know, we can get into, you know, the UFO connection with cattle if you want to somewhere you know, later tonight, but you do get these reports of instances like that happening, and farmers always have to deal with that situation. But when you get to discussing the snarly yow, that's not really considered one of these menacing kind of creatures. So are we dealing with...
Yow is more of a wolf. It's a four, you know, walks on four legs, not two. So, but like I said, you know, there's not a lot of historical sightings of a werewolf / dogman type creature in West Virginia, but there are enough to talk about it in a book. And there are enough other weird dog, you know, wolf tales and sightings and different things. So I thought it would be cool to just do a book on those. You know, and that's what I did with it. And because no one had ever put all that together before, you know. So in West Virginia, I mean, you know. So
yeah.
You know, it was a fun project to work on, something different and something nobody's done. And Ron Lanham did a killer cover for it for me. And did some great artwork inside the book. And Jamie Snell actually, he let me use his Rougarou art in the book too. So his that Rougarou he did was in the cookbook as well. So because I love that, you know, I love his artwork and I love Ron's artwork. They're two phenomenal artists, and I use Ron a lot, you know, because he's a native West Virginian as well, and I love his artwork.
Ron's very innovative.
Not too often you can like tell a guy, "Hey, I want this on the cover. I want you to do this, this, and this," and then he does it to a T, and it's easy to work with him. You know, he knows what I want and how I like it, and he makes it happen for me. And you know, that's been few and far between. Over the years, working with different artists and different people on these book projects and stuff. So,
okay, so,
but it's a good book. You know, it's a good little book, and people are really getting a lot of positive feedback from it. And
I really enjoyed it.
I appreciate it.
And since you were just talking about you know, some of the native artwork that depicts something, some kind of creature that you know, really makes you wonder, you know, what did that artist see and want to devote the time to?
Right. I mean, like for me, it was, for natives, it's a significant event if they were willing to take the time to draw it or carve it out of a rock or on a cave wall. You know, it was a significant event in their lives, and they felt compelled to put it on there and share it with the world or their tribe or whoever would see it for generations to come. you know.
Yeah, and there are petroglyphs found throughout this. There are mounds. Have when Steve Ward has been a guest, we've gotten into John Keel writing about the mounds. Dave, have there are some mounds left? You get, the Grave Creek Mound, a few in Charleston.
Oh yeah,
there were a lot. Yeah. Do you have any stories or learn some of the folklore of any of these creatures being associated with mounds?
Well, all that's personal opinion, but my point of view on the mounds, and it's not just here in West Virginia. West Virginia is a significant area for the mound builders. But as you know, some of the skeletons found in these mounds were massive, and some were reported 12 to 15 feet tall. Some had double rows of teeth. There is a genetic disorder where some humans have a double row of teeth, but it's very, very rare. And there's very few documented cases of that. But it seems in these giant skeletons, a lot of them had double rows of teeth. Now, that's not really too much of a human trait. And who's to say if these beings, if they were not human, and a lot of times the skulls are much thicker than normal humans, and all kind. There's a lot of other factors too, but not without getting into that too much. But who's to say some of these beings didn't breed with humans and then passed on that genetic trait to humans, to have some of the humans they bred with to have double rows of teeth. And a lot of I believe that these skeletons are more than likely some sort of ET, or as we talk about in the Bible, the Nephilim, or offspring of the Nephilim. So, because we all know in the older times, humans, Homo sapiens, were much, much smaller than we are today. And these skeletons were just way, way bigger than the normal size of humans back in those thousands of years ago. So it's really bizarre. And another bizarre fact about that is it would seem almost immediately when one of these skeletons were discovered that government personnel would come in and swoop them off and take them away, never to be heard of again. And there's all kinds of rumors that some of them are in the Smithsonian vault, and other rumors that say that literally thousands of these giant skeletons that have been found all over the world, and in the United States more specifically, have been thrown overboard into the Atlantic Ocean. Now, if that's the case, what are they hiding from us? So, and we all know that the government likes to cover up things and hide things for their own agendas. Therefore, you got to kind of come to your own conclusions that, there was some of the stuff that we've read about and heard in historical documents is probably true. But certain powers that be do not want us knowing about those because it's all about money, power, and control of them. So there's a lot to all of this stuff. So you can go way down the rabbit hole with it.
Yeah, and since we were just listening to you discuss secrecy, West Virginia, you can look at Mason County that really isn't accessible by interstate. It's a bit of a challenge to get to by land. It's really easy by kayak. But if we look at in the mountains on the other side of the state, the dense forests, there's not a huge population. there aren't a lot of roads. There's not a lot of industrialization. Do you feel like those kinds of isolated settings to the credibility that maybe some of these, just say dire wolf, may have actually survived much? I never went extinct, and they're still walking around today, and we just don't know that. There's like 6 breeding pairs left, and you may have just happened to drive by one and had the encounter.
I mean, let's face it, anything's possible. We all heard growing up about these tales from the ancient seafarers about the Kraken. Kraken. Oh, well, that's just that's mythology. It's it's just false tales. But guess what happened? Japanese fishermen caught a 65-foot giant squid in their nets, basically proving that the Kraken exists. Okay, whether they call it a giant squid or a Kraken, it's still the same creature. So. Anything's possible in my point of view, in my opinion. Obviously, if there was dire wolves running around, even if there was only a couple, I mean, surely there would be possibly an attack on a human at some point, and I just don't see a creature of that magnitude going unreported. And, there are some reports out there. There was a famous piece of footage of I forget where it was, but guy was out walking his little dog, and this black thing was over there in the woods, and the dog went running after it. And this thing stood up, and it was massive. And they said people thought it was a dire wolf. Now, whether it was a trick of photography or not, who knows, and that's another unfortunate thing with today's technology. People can do some pretty amazing things with CG and other things, but camera trickery and whatnot. But, unless you're there and you experience it, you never really know unless we have a dead specimen, It always comes back to that. So unfortunately, that's where we're left with as researchers and investigators. We're, hoping somebody runs one over or something, happens and find a specimen we can study and see firsthand. So, other than that, we have to rely on credible people, that really have nothing to gain by saying, hey, I was out there doing this, and this is what happened to me, and this is what I saw. And then we take it from there and just, try to find hair samples, gum, whatever the case, or capture something on video or photograph or whatever. Audio even works in some cases, so.
Yeah, and with even the mountains, ranges, you do talk about the geography may have some ley lines. John Keel threw that question out there as well.
That's a great point. We talk about the ley lines and we talk about these Native American sacred sites, and they seem to all kind of coincide or interconnect with sightings of strange lights in the sky, strange creatures, paranormal activity, the whole gambit, and I think there's definitely something to that. I know what you're getting at, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I'm trying to keep my train of thought on what you were saying, and really, that's what we look for, We look for these hot spots, so to speak, where they have the whole gambit, going on. And, of course, West Virginia, just to talk about my home state, is chock full of sacred Native American sites. And we have a ton of sightings of various type of creatures, whether it's the Mothman, a Bigfoot, or dogman on occasion, strange lights out the wazoo, strange craft out the wazoo in the skies, over West Virginia. Basically, we have it all, numerous locations that have just a ton of paranormal activity of all sorts in them. So, that's one thing I love about West Virginia. And you touched on something that was really important, what we were talking about. It is a very, very rural state. There's not many flat spots in West Virginia. The whole state is nothing but mountains, literally. And there are sections of land that are literally millions of acres where there's nothing. And I know for a fact there's probably places out in the Monongahela National Forest where people have probably never even set foot, unless it's an ancient man of some sort, because it's so remote. It's so, it's dangerous. There's cliffs and everything that would be very hazardous to humans trying to traverse these cliffs and mountainous areas in some areas. So, very rural, prime location. There's plenty of caves for any type of creature, to survive in. There's plenty of food here with a huge deer population. If the creature would be an herbivore, like there's berries and all types of edible plants that something could survive off of, even through the winter. So the winters here can be rough, but they're probably mostly medium winters as far as snowfall. We know something every now and then we get a crazy snowfall of 4 or 5 feet or something like that. Standard snowfall's a foot to 3 foot here on a good one. On a decent amount of snow. So
we get the nor'easter from time to time.
Yeah, right. So plenty of cave works here as well. Plenty of shelter for any type of creature such as Bigfoot or other creatures that may need that type of shelter. So prime habitat for something really big and, that something that was that big to survive in, easily.
Yeah, Dave, since you worked in law enforcement, what do you look for when you're interviewing someone? They call you, and you might go to their house and meet with them.
Right.
What are you looking for? We've had a profiler as a guest a couple times. Our listeners.
So what's my process, right?
Yeah. So are they really agitated? Does that make them more credible?
No, I mean, some people, of course, they're if they have a life-changing event, such as a sighting of a creature that's something that just blows their mind, or maybe a UFO, whatever the case. Usually they're very animated when they talk, but it can also be the total opposite of that. They can be like they're really just blown away and they're scared to death. And they don't even want to talk about it, but they feel compelled enough to reach out. So you can have the animated person who's like screaming, "Oh my God, I saw this happened," or whatever. Or you have a person that's just really bewildered and just like, "Man, I saw something, or something that this happened to me, and it scares me to death." But they feel compelled enough to talk about it. When I interview folks, I use techniques that I was taught in law enforcement. Basically, you ask people, the same questions over and over in different manners and try to catch them up in a lie. And usually, if they're telling the truth, they're not, they'll give you the same response every time, no matter how you ask the question and what fashion you use your questioning techniques in. So, usually I interview them by phone first, once or twice, trying to see if they got any visual evidence, such as a picture or audio, and have them send it to me. And then I make a determination if I think they're telling me the truth, and go out there and check it out if I feel compelled that it's a legit case and the person's a legit person. Unfortunately, some people make up things because they think they're going to get on TV for it or whatever, and you kind of try to leave those folks out. And usually you can spot them pretty easily, but sometimes you can't. You know, I've been fooled a few times myself over the years, so it just happens that way. You know, you got to give people the benefit of the doubt because, you know, who are we to say, you know, that they're lying when, you know, we weren't there? So,
yeah,
you know.
In one of the cases, you mentioned something about the person felt God was watching over them, and you can read Jeff Wamsley's one of his the facts behind the legend, where Linda Scarberry, she wanted to go to the nearest minister once I got back into town after the chase with the Mothman. You know, we've had other guests discuss, you know, prior to their experience, you know, about all they ever read was the newspaper, Mad Magazine. But yeah, like all of a sudden, if they saw a UFO, you know, they're reading all this like ancient sacred literature from, you know, around the world. You know, it's like, that's a big difference. And that came on suddenly. Is there some kind of, like, in your interviews, are you finding people had a almost like a religious experience after seeing one of these, you know, just say Bigfoot?
Yeah, so, you know, here's the thing. So, prime example, you know, when I talk about my story, me and my grandfather, we had a Bigfoot experience here on the Gully when I was a kid. So my grandfather was a preacher for 40 years after World War II. And to him, what we saw was a demon, and we didn't talk about it. Because if it doesn't talk about it in the Bible, then it's a, you know, or if it, you know, to him, it's a demon. And that's it. No ifs, ands, or buts. And with many other people, it's the same. It's a spiritual experience, whether it's good or bad, okay? Because people draw their conclusions based off of what they know and what they've been taught, right? So if they're a Christian person and they see a creature like Bigfoot and it's in a negative manner, you know, where it's maybe attacking them or throwing stuff at them, you know, they're automatically going to assume that that's an evil creature. They don't know where it came from because why? Fear. Fear is a powerful, powerful thing. And when you actually see something or have an experience of that magnitude, it's life-changing because here's a creature you may have not heard about in the Bible or something to that effect that is evil in nature, right? So, you know, it could go either way. But it is a spiritual experience, even if it's good or bad for some people. Other people who are more scientific-minded say, well, that's you know, I saw a Bigfoot. Now I'm a believer that there's an undocumented species running around the planet. Other people might think it's an extraterrestrial, you know, because, you know, they're just scientific-minded and they go a different route with it. But, you know, that's what happens when we don't have a specimen to study that we know of for everyone to study. I'm a firm believer that the government knows what these things are and they're covered up for whatever reason. But, you know, it's based off your cultural background, your belief system. And, you know, you could go either way for some folks. It could be evil, could be good, could be, you know, heavenly or spiritual. And some native tribes call Bigfoot's a big brother, you know, the big brother of the forest or the protector of the forest. Others say that these red-headed giants, which I liken to Bigfoots, were evil and they would sneak into their camps and kidnap people and eat them. They were cannibalistic. So there's so many ways you can go with it. It just depends off what the creature was doing, what your belief system, what your cultural background is, and so many. And the fear factor is a major factor in that, you know, because, you know, just if you just, another example would be, you're driving down the road and you see a 50-foot snake in the road. That's terrifying because you've heard a story or two about it, but now you've seen a live specimen and you're like, oh my God, these things are real. I'm out of here, So
18-inch garter snakes are like that too. But I digress. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you get the gist of what I'm saying. So, it could definitely be a spiritual experience for people, whether it's demonic spiritually or heavenly. It just depends what each situation is different, and what each person's belief system or cultural background is different as well.
Yeah, and you were just talking about how the fear of the snake, the Bigfoot, possible cryptid, you just had to, in most instances, there was just the brief glance at something that your mind really didn't process, but we have that when Andrew Smith was a guest with us, he discovered or discussed the responses of the May family and what they discovered once they got in by the copse of trees with the Braxy or the Braxton County, Flatwoods Monster in Braxton County. Hopefully our audience remembers that. If you're a new listener, go back to that show. That that was an interesting one. But you'll be speaking at the Flatwoods Monster conference. That's coming up real soon, I think.
It's coming up in September. It's coming up on the anniversary of the sighting.
Okay. So we have a little bit more time to see, before that one. But the Mothman festival gets a lot of attention, but the Flatwoods Monster case gets a lot of attention too. That was something really strange, and they were talking about was it like a 10 or 12 foot tall
metallic something or other.
Floating across the hillside, coming towards the May family. Okay, what you've you basically grew up there in Flatwoods. What's some of your interpretations of what was going on in that enigmatic case?
Well, so I was born in Gassaway, which is right down the road, just literally like 3 or 4 miles from Flatwoods, and Sutton area, just literally right down the road. But I'm actually from the next county over, but that was the closest hospital in days, like 15 minutes away when I was born. So they had to take me to that one because Mom said I was coming out, and that was it. That's the closest hospital they could get me to in time, right? So, I spent a lot of years listening to my family talk about the Flatwoods Monster because my mom's first cousins all went to school with those, went to the same school as the May boys and all that stuff. And it was 1952 was a very significant year, not only in West Virginia, but the whole East Coast and the whole country as a whole for UFO sightings. There were so many, in fact, that our fighter jets were ordered to chase these things and shoot them down, right? And there was several sightings of UFOs right over the White House. And, by air, D.C. is literally just I mean, I think it's like you can get there in 30, 40 minutes by air from here, you know.
Right.
And that's a very short amount of, you know, short distance by air. So there was a wave of sightings going on that entire year, and rumor has it that there was multiple objects sighted that night. And, you know, who knows what happened, but there's a lot of cover-up that went on during the Flatwoods Monster incident. It made worldwide news. There was some reports of men in black around the area, telling people not to talk about it. Of course, if you read Frashino's book, which is he's got 2 books, he did a revised edition, but he spent 20 years documenting this case and doing a lot of legwork, and it's unfortunate that he's not out there talking about it. I don't know what his problem is or whatever, but, you know, he had started talking about it and doing some conferences and things, and had Stanton Friedman involved in a conference here years ago, and it had a really good turnout, you know, in Flatwoods, and, you know, there was like 2,000 or 3,000 people there, and I don't know what happened, but Ron Lanham and Joe Perdue have been waiting patiently, you know, and Andrew was trying to get this thing off the ground, but he couldn't get much support from the Flatwoods community and stuff to make it happen. And then, you know, he works for the CVBB there in Sutton. So, you know, they're not willing to put the funds out. So me, Ron, and Joe got together, and we're going to try to get the conference back to where it should be, you know, and it was it made worldwide news. Numerous people saw this fiery craft come down and made controlled turns, landed on the Fisher farm. The group of kids were playing football at their school, ran up to their house, got their mom and their older cousin who happened to be in the National Guard. They ran up on the Fisher farm and had this whole horrifying encounter with this metallic-type creature that was spewing noxious fumes and everything else, and kind of made its way toward them, and they all ran down out of there off the hill and back to their house, called the sheriff, and, you know, 2 of the boys reported seeing a craft off in the ravine off to the right, but none of the other folks saw it. So a couple of the kids saw a craft, and then the rest of them all saw the monster, right? So, but here's the tricky part about this. So during all this, what wasn't known is that a Special Forces National Guard unit was already on the move and on the ground in Flatwoods, just not even hours after the thing came down, and the group was split into 2 teams. One was a cover-up unit to say they were looking for a downed aircraft down on the Elk River. The other part of the group came in covertly on the back side of the Fisher farm on an old logging road. And it was then Captain Levitt who was in charge of that group, and he was ordered to collect any evidence and send it back to the Pentagon post haste. So he did that. They found some sludgy stuff on the ground. They took samples, sent it off, and many, many years later, when it was then Colonel Levitt, did an interview with Frashino and talked about that he truly feels there was a cover-up, because he tried to get back with them to find out anything, and they would not return his calls or anything. And then there was they put out some cover story that it was some kind of grease off of something, but it was a lot of substance on the ground. And they also found indentations on the ground and sort of like slide marks where something had definitely landed on the ground. And this whole scenario went on for a couple of weeks. There was another sighting of the same type of creature, only this time it didn't have what looked like a helmet on with portals in the eyes over in Strange Creek, which was real close to Gasaway where I was born. This young couple had a newborn baby. They traveled from New York to Cincinnati, and they took the scenic route on the way home, and they came through the Strange Creek area, and the car just quit in the middle of the road for no reason. So he got out, was looking at the car and stuff, and they saw a glowing light. He saw a glowing light over down on the other side of the guardrail, and kind of went over towards it. And there was these noxious fumes. The baby was crying. They were choking. Their eyes were burning. And when he tried to check out what this glowing light was, he's talked about it in one interview. said there was a glowing orb down there. He made his way closer to it. As he got closer, he felt like his body was like when your arm goes to sleep, but he said it was his entire body, and he felt like all these pins and needles sensation,
Wow.
and it was like shocking him, and he fell down and got back up, and it took everything he had to make his way back to the car. As he's making his way back to the car, he sees his wife looking out the passenger side window, but looking behind him, and she let out a horrifying scream, and he looked behind him, and there was this creature that resembled a lizard-looking like creature from the waist up, but it was in some kind of metal apparatus that was floating, coming right behind him. So he, made his way back to the car. He got in the car. The family huddled down in the front seat. Those old cars in the 50s, they were huge. So the whole family got down under the dashboard and was cowering. And after a few minutes, he peeked up and looked out the windshield, and there's this creature there, looked a lizard-like with a metal apparatus from its waist down, and it had these long spindly arms, and it was like, almost like it was trying to figure out what the car was, like touching around on the car and everything. And all he had was an old knife in the glove box, and he had that in his hand. And as he's watching this thing, it just turned and glided away. And then within a few minutes, they heard a weird whirring sound, and they saw this. He described it as a street-light globe of the old street lights, but much bigger. It floated up about 2,000 feet, he said, and started going swaying back and forth in a pendulum motion, and then it just shot off into the sky with sparks flying behind it. So after a few minutes after that happened, the car mysteriously just started right back up. The family was just disheveled. They ran down the road. Didn't know what to do with themselves, so they decided they were going to stay at the lodge there that night. So, they got something to eat, got the room, and then the next morning when they got up, they had to fuel up to go back to New York. And to his surprise, he said that he looked at the hood of the car where that thing was touching, and all the paint was like melted off, and the metal underneath was rusted already. So there was huge spots.
Wow.
And so, that, and then there was a week or so later, there was a whole other weird thing in Parkersburg, where this burnt up body of something they found, they called it Brushy Bill and stuff like that, but people were seeing a flatwoods-like creature up there. So numerous people over the years have speculated that we may have shot one of their craft, and damaged it. It landed, and there was a rescue mission to try to rescue their comrades, so to speak. And that's why there was numerous alien type, ET or monster sightings of this creature around the state for a couple of weeks after the initial night of September 12, 1952. Because the George and Edith Natowski that I told you about was the very next night, and it was just a short distance from where the original sighting was. So, and then a week or so later, they had the whole Brushy Bill thing. So, the many speculate that it was a rescue mission by these ETs or whatever they were to get their wrecked comrades and get them out of there. Because it was during this whole massive UFO wave over the whole East Coast and the whole rest of the United States. And, a lot of people don't talk about it, but many of our pilots were killed chasing these objects, and they label it as training accidents. And a lot of pilots have come out over the years and talked about it, so there's definitely something going on, something, and then there's a mass cover-up of it as well. And, if you've ever heard the Mantell story, so Mantell was from West Virginia, too. He was a decorated World War II pilot. He knew what he was doing. He was flying a P-51 Mustang out of Kentucky. Him and his unit saw this massive object in the sky. They tried to chase it. The other two guys, they had to back off because they weren't carrying oxygen that day. So he kept flying and trying to, figure out what this thing was. And then he crashed and burned. Well, they don't really talk about it, but there was, when you shoot in those airplanes, a lot of the shell casings end up in the cockpit because of the way the planes are set up. And his cockpit was totally littered with empty shell casings. So he was shooting at whatever it was. And they tried to say, oh, it was Venus and this and that. It wasn't Venus. He was an experienced World War II, decorated World War II pilot. He knew what he was doing, and he obviously could tell the difference between some kind of unknown craft in the sky and the planet Venus. So, there's another cover up there. So, I talk about a lot of those cases in my Real West Virginia UFO book as well, and I talk about the significance of West Virginia in modern ufology, because a lot of people don't even realize that SETI was started right here in Green Bank, West Virginia, by Carl Sagan and Frank Drake, at the Green Bank Observatory, where they're still looking for ETs right now as we speak, ET signals. It was started right here in West Virginia. Guess when? Just a few short years after the initial Flatwoods Monster incident. A government-funded project, the world's largest movable telescope
radio
in the
telescope.
world. Its radio telescope is right here in West Virginia, and it was built and put in here right after, Green Bank was started right after the Flatwoods Monster incident. So there's no coincidence in that. And, a lot of people don't even realize that in the 1960s, West Virginia was considered the UFO capital of the world. And, I document tons of historical sightings and eyewitness sightings and accounts going back to the 1800s. Some I dug out of church records because there was no reporting agencies back then, like newspapers and stuff in some of these little rural communities, and everything was reported in the church records. So I was able to dig out some pretty cool ones of these giant descriptions of people seeing these giant ships that stretch from one mountaintop to another that was miles long. This was before blimps and everything else were even invented. Very significant stuff happened here in West Virginia.
I think you document quite a few of these fascinating cases throughout your books. And if, let's see, when you have your conference, that's coming up in what, about 2.5, 3 weeks. So, okay, you're going to be there with your captivating discussions. Who are some of your other speakers? What can they expect for the day?
So it's called West Virginia Monster Con. The reason I put I have a store called Dave Spinks, World of Weird, as you touched on briefly for a minute. I put the store here in Richwood, West Virginia, because for a couple of reasons. One, I wanted to help the town, and two, it's right on the edge of the Monongahela National Forest. And for those of you out there listening that don't know, the Monongahela is a vast, vast expanse of land, millions and millions of just wooded, untouched land. I mean, there's places where there's not a house for 40, 50 miles. And it stretches from southeastern West Virginia all the way up to almost to Maryland and parts of PA. It's like right on the border. It's a massive expanse of land. But I put it there because the bulk of the Bigfoot sightings and strange things in the sky, occurrences, and all kinds of weird, strange reports happen in the Monongahela. It's, a lot of it's ancient Native American land as well. Like I said, it's very rural. And over in that area, too, the Green Bank Observatory is there, and that is what is called a radio silent zone. So for miles around the Green Bank, you don't have any cell phone service. There's no radio signals, no nothing, because they can't have anything. Those things are so sensitive that they can't have any kind of interference. People can't even have microwaves and stuff around there that live around there because it messes up the radio telescopes. And there's all kind of crazy UFO reports and Bigfoot sightings in the Monongahela and other strange creature sightings as well. Giant Thunderbird type creatures and everything else. So, it's just one of those places that is an area, of high strangeness, as folks, use that terminology. And totally weird stuff going on. So I put it right here on the edge of that so people can come to the store. And eventually, I'm working with the National Park Service stuff. We're going to be taking tours out there, and I'll be taking people out on some Bigfoot hunts and sky watching events as well. So that, there's a much bigger plan going on, but, we've only been open a little over a year now. So, it'll take baby steps until we get it all up and running, and it's really cool, man. And it's a lot of fun, and it's basically my office away from home. I get people coming in daily telling me accounts, I'm so glad you're here because I've been holding this story in for 20, 30 years. Now I feel like this is a safe space where I can tell it to someone. And it's great, so.
Okay. Speaking about...
Going to the conference again, So we have Stan Gordon coming. We have, and I'm sure everybody out there knows who Stan Gordon is. He's an OG paranormal investigator. Most widely known for the Kecksburg incident. He was just a young man when all that went down, and he was pretty much one of the first investigators on the scene there. And then we have Dr. Raymond Keller, who's he's a PhD for 40 years at West Virginia University. He's written numerous books about Venus and UFOs and ETs. He's a keynote speaker as well. We have Eric Altman, who's a well-known paranormal cryptid investigator, mostly cryptids, but he delves into the paranormal as well. He'll be a featured speaker. We have Barry Gaunt and the Night Stalkers, who's a native West Virginia, but he is he lives in Kentucky now. He runs the Octagon Hall Museum, and he's known as the Kentucky Truth Seeker. Was high up in MUFON for many, many years. And just, he's been investigating this stuff probably since the 70s, early 70s. So he's very well known. We have, of course, myself. I'll be speaking, and Serenity Jenny on all the metaphysical aspects of some of this stuff as well. And Ron Lanham and Joe Perdue, native West Virginians, wild and weird West Virginia. Got to have those guys there. They're excellent speakers and very knowledgeable. Joe's a master naturalist and does a lot of Bigfoot investigations, and Ron does it all like me. I mean, he's in there with Joe, they're partners, but Ron delves into a little more of everything like myself, and as well as being an artist, and they make some really cool stuff, man. I highly recommend visiting their table if you ever see them out at an event somewhere, because they got some cool stuff, man, they make. And then, last but not least, we got a special guest coming. Wild Bill from Mountain Monsters will be there in the store signing pictures and whatnot for folks.
Okay, and when are the dates for the conference?
April 28th and 29th. I have it listed at the 30th too, because we're going to have the store open all weekend so people can come in, and if they miss something, they can come in and see some of us and hang out and buy, if they want to buy stuff or buy books, sign books, they can. But the main event, the VIP night is Friday night. So if you get VIP tickets, you get to come in and hang out with all the guest speakers one-on-one, ask questions. We'll talk to you for about 2 or 3 hours. We're going to feed you. You get a little bit of swag, like a T-shirt or something, and you get front row tickets all day Saturday to all the speaker spots. And Saturday is all day speaking by all the guest speakers, and then they'll have their tables where you can buy, their products such as books or whatever they have at their tables and talk to them some more. And we will have vendors as well, various vendors from around the area, and that some make paranormal stuff, cryptid stuff. Some are just regular vendors, and they'll all be there at the American Legion with their tables while the speakers are speaking, and then the speakers go back to the American Legion post right across from the store, and they'll have their table in there.
Okay. Are there going to be food trucks?
Well, yeah, we don't need food trucks because we have several restaurants in town.
Okay.
The whole town gets behind this. They make specialty Bigfoot burgers. The local Dairy Queen, it's not Dairy Queen, but it's just like Dairy Queen. It used to be a Dairy Queen, but They make a Mothman avalanche that's awesome, and all the restaurants, you know, they even serve like Braxy beer and Bigfoot Sasquatch beer and different types of beers at some of the places, and make specialty foods just for the event. So it's a lot of fun.
Okay, sounds great. And okay, so since you're covering this huge expansive, like the central part of the state with the forest.
Well, I cover the whole thing, Mark, but you know the Monongahela is essentially the whole east side, really the whole east side of West Virginia. The entire, from top to bottom, is the Monongahela National Forest. So it's a huge part of the state, and that's, you know, probably covers it's probably like an eighth or more of the state. I mean, the whole entire state. So it's huge. And but I cover the whole state, you know, I'm not just known, you know, I go all over the country. This is just my home state. So of course, you know, the bulk of my investigations over the years have been here in the Mountain State. But having said that, I've done many, many investigations in other states. You know, I've been doing this stuff for over 30 years now. Yeah. And I don't just do cryptids. I do UFO investigations, as well as many, many paranormal, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of paranormal investigations.
Yeah, so. and that's where I was going. And just not too far outside of the eastern part of the state, you do bring up the Antietam battlefield. That's really not too far away. There's Gettysburg is just across the border. So you do touch on Antietam in your West Virginia Dogman book, but if you've done a lot more investigations of Civil War battlefield ghosts, and a lot of people seem really drawn to Gettysburg. But
I am a veteran too, so I was in the military for over 8 years, and in the National Guard for a year after that. But battlefields are notorious for having hauntings, because you got to think about all that energy that was expended there, and how many lives were suddenly cut short by a bullet or a cannonball or whatever the case. And to me, that's a perfect recipe for paranormal activity on battlefields. So all those young men in the prime of their lives, and their life was just snuffed out in an instant. So, and they, for me, some of them probably don't even know they're dead, man. Their spirit's still running around thinking they're alive. So prime location. But, the whole plan is, I started writing. I never thought I'd write a book, but through, not really coercion, but people, pushed me and said, dude, you got so many cases, you should put them in the book. So I tried a couple, and they seem to be, they went really well. And, I have plans in the works for, I have a whole West Virginia haunted series, Real Hauntings of West Virginia, Volume 1, 2, and 3. Number 1's out. It sells out consistently, constantly. Number 2 and 3 will be out real soon. And I have plans for Real Hauntings of Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Florida, Tennessee, New Mexico, Alabama, Virginia. There's so many states that I've done numerous investigations, South Carolina, North Carolina. I mean, there's so many that I can do, enough to do a 200-page book on all these different states that I've spent a significant amount of time in through my life and investigations and living there. I've lived all over the place, and I've lived overseas as well. But, that's the plans with these books. And, it's a lot of work writing a book, but I have enough material where I could literally write books on all those states and more that I just mentioned. So, that's the plan in the forthcoming years, that I'll be putting out those books and sharing my experiences and many other people's experiences. I've interviewed and investigated their experiences and sightings, and I'm looking forward to it. It's a lot of fun. It's fun, too, and it's humbling when you put out a book and people give you great feedback on it. It's like, wow, I never thought I'd write a book. Now I've got 8 out, so.
Okay, and, your Willow's Weep documentary has been very popular. Let's get into case study. It was featured on William Shatner's show. What's the story behind this property that was started in starting to be occupied in the 1890s, and now you own it, and it's in Indiana. So can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah. So through the paranormal grapevine, as I call it, you hear about these locations. Other investigators that you are friends with and stuff say, "Man, you got to go to this place and check it out. When we were there, we got this or this happened," or whatever. So I had heard about this place called Willow's Weep, and in 2014, I went there to investigate it for the first time. And first time, it was, we had some pretty crazy stuff happen. Nothing real crazy, but, we had some battery drain, got some really good EVPs. And the most significant thing that happened was while standing in the middle of the house, which you got to remember, the house is in the shape of a cross, this huge hound came from under the floor, and this cold burst of air shot up from my feet right through the top of my head. And
wow.
it literally lifted me up a little bit. That's how powerful it was. So after the person I was with there, we had those experiences, and I was like, wow, man, I need to come back here and spend some more time here. So I came back several more times after that and got some really crazy stuff, and more EVPs, objects moving, like couches and weird stuff, doors shutting on their own, and residual gunshot recorded, and all kinds of just really good stuff. And then out of the blue one day in 2017, and having been there several times, I became friends with the former owner. And out of the blue in 2017, she called me up and said, "Hey, Dave, me and Bob we're out of here. We really feel this house has tried to kill both of us a couple of times now, and we're moving. We're selling this stuff. No one lived in it since she bought it, for her son to fix up. When they started fixing it up, crazy stuff was going down in it. So they started having paranormal teams in trying to help them figure it out, and that's how I heard about it. So long story short, she asked me if I wanted to buy it. She said, "There's only 2 people we trust with this house. The other one couldn't do it, and we want to know if you want to buy it." And I said, "Man, I don't know. This place is pretty hairy, and it's a real evil, nasty place. It's just dark energy there, numerous deaths in the house, suicide, overdoses, different things like that. Negative stuff's happened to a lot of investigators there." So I thought about it. I said, "Give me a day or 2, and I'll get back to you." So I decided, doing what I do, what better opportunity would it be to have my own location where I can control the environment and have a truly my own paranormal lab, basically, and I'll keep letting other teams come in and document what they get, and we'll compile it and see what we can get, So I actually bought it from her in 2017, 2019. Investigated it countless times. I couldn't even count how many times I've been in the house investigating it since that time. But 2017 I bought it. 2019 they approached me and wanted to do a segment of an episode on Unexplained about evil places. And I said, yeah, you can come. And unfortunately, they showed just a little short segment of me in the house. And the best stuff we got during the filming of that episode, they didn't even show, man. Something flew across the room. The meters were going haywire. The sound person ran out of the room freaking out because they were hearing numerous voices on their high-tech audio equipment. They didn't even put none of that in the episode. That's unfortunate, but that's how TV works sometimes. So yeah, it got featured on there. On History Channel's YouTube page when they showed the first clip of it, like a little promo clip. I mean, it had like 70 million views, and then they took it down for some reason. Then they put it back up, and it had like 35 million views. And it was really cool to be a part of the first episode of that show with William Shatner, and the show, I feel like I was a small part of the success of that show because I was on several episodes of that show talking about different things. And, at first I was the only paranormal guy on that entire show for the first 2 seasons, and then they started having other people come in and do some cryptic stuff and different stuff. But, yeah, it was cool experience, and there's even more bigger stuff coming with the Weep. I can't really talk about it right now, but I'm super stoked about it. There's major stuff happening that's going on right now with it. So, as soon as I'm allowed to, then I'll be talking about it all over these podcasts and radio shows. So, super exciting stuff. I'm working on book number 2 about the Weep, which is more about some of the investigations I've done there at the house, and I had other people there. And we're, share all the experiences and whatnot that I had. And the thing with me, Mark, too, is a lot of people don't realize, probably at 98% of the stuff I write about in books, I got video to back up all this stuff. Mm-hmm. You can go on my YouTube channel, Real Supernatural, and then I had another channel for a while with David Weatherly called Society Supernatural. All the stuff's still up there. But you can go and watch some of the live investigations. And most of the stuff I was doing was live in those days. I was like the second person to ever do live paranormal investigations on YouTube. But I just got so busy with TV and writing books and stuff, everybody and their brother started doing YouTube. And I'm like, well, been there, done that. I don't want to be doing what everybody else is doing, copying me and another guy who were the kind of the pioneers of that live YouTube stuff back in the day. And, it is what it is, but lots of stuff on that channel, hundreds of investigation videos on there,
Yeah, on your trailer that you have on your website,
mm-hmm.
The drone footage.
Oh, yeah, and then Willow's Weeps also feature, they also put Unexplained on Netflix, too. So you guys can watch that if you don't have the TV subscriptions. Or cable, you can go to Unexplained on Netflix and watch the first 4 seasons are on there, I believe, now.
So, you have like a little media empire going on.
Well, here's the thing, man. I've been doing this for a long time, and, if I would have been smart back in the days before all this stuff was on TV and I would have submitted this to TV, I would have probably been a multi-millionaire by now, but I didn't do that,
With the aerial photographs you have of the house, built in the shape of a cross, or if you fly the drone around the other side, it'd be an upside down cross. But
yeah, I don't think it was. I don't really. That's other people talking about that. I don't really subscribe that it's an upside down cross. It is facing east, so if you look at it from west to east, it'd be an upside down cross. And if you look at the top of it, you can see where they added on a back porch overhang many years later, and then some weird little closet-type rooms in the corners of the arms of the cross. But when it was originally built, it was totally like almost a perfect cross, man. So, it's unusual, but there are other houses that were built in that fashion in those times. We did find out that it's found out from a 32nd degree Mason that it was built by Masons, by a Mason, probably for a Mason. There are Masonic symbols all throughout the house on the door frames and everything else. He said, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but this is what this means, and this is this, and this, and this. So, I was privy to get more information. on that, but there's no like we tried to find records to see if it was some kind of Masonic meeting hall or something to that effect, but we couldn't find any records on that. And the records in that county of that particular county in Indiana are a total mess. I think there was a fire at one time and burned up some of the records, and they're not in any order. It's just a nightmare trying to research anything on that house. And at one time, the house was actually the town wasn't even called Cayuga. It was they named it, I think it was Springfield, Indiana, and they changed the name for whatever reason to Cayuga. And it's two towns that butt up against each other. One's Eugene and the other one's Cayuga. So it's really weird, you know. And then again, guess what is in the general area right down the road from the house? Native American burial mounds. Go figure, right?
Okay, so yeah, the mounds probably had the intent of being a peaceful place of repose. You have the house being built in the shape of a cross. I mean, most cathedrals are built like that as well. Right. So,
yeah, I don't put much into the whole upside down cross thing. That's other people talking about that. I'm not the one that started that. I was put out way before I ever owned the house.
Yeah. So, is there a reason why there's this suicides and overdoses, and the house tried to kill it's almost like the house is alive trying to...
Well, here's the thing, Mark. So when you have so there's more factors that we look for as investigators. There's two rivers that run into that town, and there's a huge aquifer right under that whole town and the house itself. So we know water is what? It's a conduit for energy, right? Also, in that whole area during the French occupation of that part of the United States, there was all these French and Indian wars, and there was lots of people killed in that area, French soldiers and Native Americans as well. Most of the neighbors I've talked to have at one time or another dug up arrowheads in their yards and pottery, you know, because the whole it's right there on a river. So of course, you know, natives always camped by rivers because they needed water, and they, you know, grew their medicine gardens there. They fished and they hunted there. So because everything needs water, right? So the deer and animals would come in for water. They kill them and eat them and so on and so forth. So you had a lot of strife in that area. And then when you talk about the house itself being built on, if that's sacred Native American land, if you talk to any natives, they will tell you if houses or structures are built on top of their land, they always protect their land with what we call elementals or the spirits. You know, the native spirits protect those lands. So if you subscribe to the paranormal and that type of situation, that's going to immediately anger those protective spirits and cause things to happen, most likely, right? So we're just using, you know, opinionated thinking here. So with that being said, we know that there are some, at one point in time, there was witchcraft practice in the house. There was, underneath the cross base of the house, in the center of what would be the center of the cross, there is a fire pit, just like you would see almost like at a campground, which is really bizarre because when I went under the house, I had to crawl, almost belly crawl to fit under there. I'm a pretty big guy, but there's no room for a person to. You have to low crawl on your elbows and knees to get under there. There's a fire pit there, and there's ashes in it. So at one point in time, why would you ever have a fire under your house unless you're doing some type of magic? And when Brenda, the former owner, bought the house for her son, someone had put a laminate floor over top of the original floor, and it was all hooved up from moisture when she bought it. So they started taking shovels and getting that new floor off of the old floor, and in the corner of one of the rooms, they found this pamphlet, and it was supposedly put out by the Church of God, but on the front of the pamphlet, there's an upside-down pentagram on fire, and it says, "Is the spirit world real?" And when you open this thing up, it talks about necromancy, how to conjure demons and everything else. So it's more like it's an occult or a cult type of organization masquerading as a Christian organization. So at and why would you hide it between the old floor and the new floor unless you were up to no good, right? So it makes perfect sense. There was many families that rented the house over the years. The original owners both died in the house. One of the owners was eaten alive by his pigs. He was also a pedophile who was molesting one of his stepdaughters. I got all the court records on that, and he was eaten alive by his own pigs. After that, he was charged for molesting his own stepdaughter. Go figure, that's some major karma going on. So, in my eyes, that's an evil deed when you do stuff like that. That's nothing but pure evil. The last guy to ever live in there, he blew his head off in the house. The other owner, they found him dead of a stroke in the bathtub, and his wife also died in the house. So there's all these tragic deaths. So there was an overdose in the house as well. And some people that paranormal investigated it over the years died after investigating the house. And there's so many things. So when you have all that bad energy as well, and then you got most likely negative type of magic or black magic being practiced in the house or under it or both, people open doorways. They let anything and everything come in there. It's a perfect recipe for a negative type of haunting. Brenda was attacked so severely the time she had the first paranormal group in there that it actually bruised her liver and kidney. Something punched her, and something unseen punched her in the gut so hard. And then she had numerous scratches on her back one time that were bleeding, like it bled through her shirt. Her husband was in great shape, nothing wrong with the man. He was very healthy. He went over to work on the house one day, kicked over with a heart attack for no reason whatsoever, and he doesn't even believe in the paranormal, by the way. And right before his heart attack, he saw a man and a little girl holding hands, and they walked right through the wall in the house. And then right after that, he had a heart attack. Well, he made it through that and was okay. And then he went. Nobody had been in the house for months during that, and then he went back over to the house to do something, and he had a stroke. So I'm a firm believer that spirits can do things like that and cause people to have, especially demonic spirits, more specifically, can influence people's health in different ways and stuff like that. Numerous people have been scratched in the house. There's been some insane shadow figures captured on camera in there. Ghostly apparitions. One of them, the Foreman brothers caught. There's a picture of it in the book. Something startled. There's three brothers. Something scared them so bad they decided to run out of the house. The last brother felt like something was right behind him, so he just turned around and took a random snapshot. And then when he later looked at the picture, it's a spitting image of the woman, the mistress of the house that died in the house, and a high neck dress, hair in a bun, and it looks exactly like her obituary. It's the spitting image of her obituary picture. And she's been captured in the house numerous times on different people's cameras and whatnot. So there's just so much. And there was hundreds of groups in that, paranormal investigative groups in that house before I ever owned it. Having said that, it's like a perfect recipe for just a negative haunting, and in so many different ways. And there's more to come in the second book. I'll tell you about my now girlfriend, but she wasn't at the time. She kind of weird, just met, and she's a very well-known psychic medium. I took her in there, and we had this whole crazy experience happen to us, and something followed us back here. And that's all. We'll talk about all that in the next book. So, but yeah, just a lot of crazy things have happened. And you can read about it in the very first book about it, the beginning, Will's Week, the beginning.
Okay, Dave, when you're talking about an upcoming book, you also have another book on the Wells House.
Yes.
How is Willow's Weep and the Wells House similar or different? What can people learn by comparing and contrasting your two case studies?
So I've got many more. First off, I'm known for spending significant amounts of time in some of these locations. Like, I immerse myself, because the only way, the best way, I'm not going to say the only way, but the best way to experience what some of these homeowners are going through is to stay a significant amount of time in the actual location that all these reports are coming through. So the Wells house was a situation where a friend of mine, Noreen Balovich, who runs the Paranormal Zone TV podcast / show on YouTube for many years, she came across this house that was a notorious haunted location in Wilkes-Barre, PA. And I'm sorry, some people in PA call it Wilkes-Barre, some say Wilkes-Barre. So whatever floats your boat, So what happened was, we put together this team of people that were seasoned investigators, and we decided the house was up for sale. So the other guy that was involved, I don't say names on here because, certain people I just don't have relationships anymore for various reasons. So the guy that was involved, me and him, and, we put this team together, and he ended up buying the house after this for a short amount of time. But this house was very well known in the area. The local college had a paranormal group there, or a paranormal school of some sorts, in the 70s and 80s, and they had investigated this place numerous times, and so much so that the case actually made it to the Warrens, Ed and Lorraine Warren, and they Ed and Lorraine Warren went there and checked it out in the 80s. Lorraine didn't go in, but Ed went in, and there's a famous picture of her standing out front, rubbing her hands, saying, "This place there's something evil in that house." That's what she said. So, and then we started doing research on the house and discovered how numerous families had lived there. There was some suicides in the house. There was deaths in the house, all kind of weird stuff. Some families would move in and move out right away, some leaving all their belongings. So that's what you look for in a haunted location. Why are these people moving in and moving out right away? Oh, there's a suicide here. A young man blew his head off in the upstairs bedroom. Okay, there's a recipe here for something bad, right? So we put this team together and went there. The first time we were there, he talked the owner in who was selling the house for us to rent it for a month, and we stayed and investigated it 24/7 for an entire month. The things that we encountered there were, to say the least, hair-raising and disturbing. Many people were touched, attacked in various ways, scratched, all kinds of crazy stuff happened. One guy, a seasoned investigator I know, I'm not going to say his name because he had a really horrible situation there overcome him. He only lasted like a week and a half, and he cried like a grown man cried like a baby. I've seen it, and he left, never came back. A girl there became pregnant. That was the rookie investigator from the other guy. She lost a baby. Women had reported when they went up to look at the house that they had all kind of weird female stuff go on with them. Another one lost the baby too, just going up on the front porch. A priest came to clear the house and bless it, and he died of a heart attack on the front porch. So you have all these crazy things going on, right? So we went there, did our thing, took a week off. I came back with the original guy, me and him. We stayed 2 more weeks, left for a week again, came back for 2 more weeks. We were there like 4 times. And he was from California, so like I was picking him up at the airport in Jersey, and then I spent the most time in the house out of anybody. So after having that experience, and it affected my life very negatively. When I came back, I discovered I had an attachment, and my whole life went upside down. I wrote about that in the book, and it was my first book I ever wrote, and so, needless to say, that one took me quite a while to write, but then there was some legalities involved because the guy who bought the house sold it to a movie guy because he was trying to take advantage of the Warren situation with it. So the book was done set on the shelf for 5 years. So it was very, upsetting that for the first book I ever wrote, I didn't even get to do anything with for 5 years. long story short, it's a similar type of location to Willow's Weep. It has all these tragic incidents, people dying, committing suicide, and all kinds of other things. Basically, that book is almost like a daily journal of what I experienced and what I saw go down in that house. The Constantinos were involved. We did a live remote with them from the house. They were getting EVPs in their house, talking about demonic entities and everything else while we were there. And they're all the way in Vegas. So we were doing some pretty, extraordinary stuff back in 2013 with this stuff, So I'm known for spending, I can't even count the times that I've spent numerous nights in a haunted location, and sometimes very lengthy amounts of time. And I'm still doing that to this day with my girlfriend Serenity Jenny, who is a psychic medium, and one of the cases that we worked on recently is going to blow people's minds when all that comes out. So, that's what I'm known for, and that's what I do.
Yeah, Dave, with the example of a priest coming to the Wells house, are you hoping that what you do can end this haunting, put make the demons go away, or the ghosts to go to wherever they're supposed to be in the afterlife? Or do you believe in that kind of angle that people can end the spiritual?
So for me, hauntings and that type of activity is all about energy. So you have good energy and you have bad energy, right? So bad energy creates negative situations. People get scratched, whatever. They get attacked. Some people die. Some people will give that little push where they commit suicide. I'm a firm believer, not in all cases, but in some cases, that these demonic entities, negative entities, whatever name you want to call them by, have the ability to persuade or give people that little push they need to end their lives, because what's their ultimate job? And it all depends what your faith background is and your cultural belief system. But in most cases, people, the major faiths all believe in this, and it might differ slightly in some ways and other ways, but these things, their sole purpose, their sole mission is to what? Is to collect souls for the devil, right? If you subscribe to that. So if they can get someone to commit suicide or, cause them to maybe kill someone else and then kill themselves, that's their job, so to speak, right? So when you have a whole area or a particular house or a place of business where a lot of negative stuff is, it's my humble opinion that these things feed off of those tragedies and those types of events, and it gives them more power. Just like fear, they feed off of fear. They love it because it empowers them, right? So if they can cause one person to kill themselves, and the energy of that particular event is very powerful, and they grow stronger from it. And I've seen it over and over again in many locations. And for me, being in law enforcement and stuff, there's no such thing as that much coincidence in one house. Okay, something is going on in some of these houses. Some of these houses are very similar in nature, and you see the same patterns. So law enforcement investigating is the same way. You're looking for patterns or an MO of a person or a place. What's the MO? What's the modus operandi? This house is 2,000 miles from this house, but they have 7 or 8 things that are almost line up exactly. There's no coincidence in that. Okay, so you have to pay attention to those things. And as an investigator, there's a lot of times when there's just no such thing as that much coincidence going on in a particular location. And people need to realize, too, there's kind of two types of paranormal investigations, right? There's the commercial ones, quotation marks on them, that, you know, the old prisons, the asylums, or whatever, you know, hospitals, the places that all these groups go to, and all they're doing is trying to document paranormal evidence. That's fine and dandy. That's what I call weekend warriors. But there's a whole other side to this, and that side is helping families, okay, helping people who are experiencing these horrible situations in their homes, negative-type hauntings, poltergeist activity, they're being scratched, they're waking up with bruises, you know, maybe one of their children is having these crazy episodes, just stuff that's so unreal and unnatural and unnormal going on. They need help, right? So, you know, what I do is I've flipped and flopped back and forth over the years because at some points it gets to be a liability situation because people think you just, you're a world-known person. You're going to come in here and you're going to be able to clear this out. It just doesn't work like that. It just does not work like that all the time. I can come in, I can say, okay, you told me this, and this is happening. I was able to document 4 out of the 5 things you told me. Okay, I believe you. There's something supernatural going on here. So I'm able to bring in certain people that can come in and clear the house for you, and maybe even people in your family may need a minor rite of exorcism. The house may need a minor rite of exorcism or a full-blown exorcism. So, you know, over the years, you develop contacts in the church and different people who have the abilities to do that. And that's what I do. You know, that's what I focus on now. I've done countless commercial locations over my time, and I don't need to document anymore. I know this stuff's real. I know there's spirits around us all the time, and some are good and some are bad. You know, it's just the way it is. Why they're still here doing this, what they exactly are, not sure. I'll never claim to have all the answers. You know why? Because nobody does. But I've been able to help people. And sometimes we can knock it down to a very minimum where the activity almost goes to nothing. But sometimes it comes back even harder. For what reason, we don't know. So we come back in, we do it again, and knock it back down. So some of these cases can go on for years, and people don't understand that. Well, how come a priest or something can't come in and just obliterate it? Well, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. You know, you just don't know. Every case is different. Sometimes you're dealing with different entities who are a lot stronger than other ones, but you do what you can do for them, you know, just how it works.
Okay. Well, you can present your findings to the appropriate people and get them in there to help end the haunting or provide counseling for the families. And, you know, it's just I'm glad you.
I work with Jen too, and she does all that. She's a minister. She can clear houses. She can do exorcisms on people. She's done it, and it's worked, you know, many times over. So I've seen her work. She's the real deal. So, you know, I've worked with the church over the years too. So, you know, you just got to do what you can do, the best you can do it, and hope for the best in some of these cases.
Yeah. Well, it's do you see your work as kind of like a faith-based?
Oh yeah. I definitely believe in God and a higher spiritual calling, and I believe there's a higher power. And for me, it's all about intent. It doesn't matter what religion you are, as long as you come with a good heart and good intent, and you're trying to help people, then it doesn't matter what religion you are. But if you're out there and you're trying to do spells and hurt people and stuff, you're not a good person. So, that's just my take on it. So
okay, we're down about 4 to 5 minutes left. Do you want to plug your conference again and any other appearances?
I got a ton of appearances this year. Best thing to do if you want to check me, if I'm coming near your home area and you want to come and see one of my presentations or see me at a book signing, just go to my website, www.davespinksparanormalinvestigator.com. Look at my event schedule, event appearances and events. You'll see where I'm going to be at. I'm still adding more there's more coming. So just look where I'm going to be at, and I'd love to see you and meet you if you have a story you want to share or whatever. And then also you can always come to the store, in Richwood, West Virginia, Dave Spinks World of Weird in Synergy Springs. We have 8,000 square feet of paranormal madness, as I call it there. And we do smaller events too, where we'll just have a paranormal or cryptid author or UFO author come in and have a day with them, and they sell their books, and you can see their presentation. So go to our Facebook page, Dave Spinks World of Weird, if you want to see upcoming future events, and just go to the events page and see what we got going on. It's a lot of fun. And if you like to be out in the rural wild woods, come to Richwood. We have some of the best trout fishing in the world here. We have rails to trails. We got hiking galore. If you want to be out in the woods, this is a place to come. And we have a lot of cool stuff coming to the store in the future. And, plus we got tons of merch. I got a 9.5-foot tall Dogman in the store. I got a full-size Sasquatch that was, special effects guys built for me. I got a Zoltar in there, all kinds of T-shirts, hats, buttons, you name it. Books, my friends' books, videos. If you want to look me up and what TV shows I'm on, go to IMDb. You can see all the TV shows and the paranormal documentaries I've been in, with more coming, by the way. Me and Jen are both filming some TV coming up soon.
Cool.
Another show will be out as well, working with Christopher Garantino on Off to the Witch, and then another show called Campfire Club we're going to both be in as well. I'm a producer of that as well. So a lot of cool stuff coming. I can't wait to share the Weep stuff, but like I said, I'm under an NDA on that right now. So as soon as that's allowed to talk about, I'll talk about it, and hopefully it all goes down like it's supposed to. So we're just waiting to see, and it's in the works is all I know. So I can't wait to share that and more, a lot of cool stuff coming.
Okay. Well, you're always welcome to come back and share more about your latest projects. Hopefully we'll get together again soon. I enjoyed hauling stuff.
Oh yeah, I love to talk
your
about this
tent
stuff all night, man.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Barbara enjoyed it too. So Dave, I want to thank you for being a very insightful guest, and I enjoyed the West Virginia Dogman, and we'll keep an invitation out for you if you have time to come back. I thought it was a terrific discussion about all kinds of paranormal stuff, and our audience loves hearing those types of topics.
Oh yeah. Yeah, if you ever want to do one night where we just talk about one thing the whole entire show, I'd be more than happy, like the week or whatever the case. But I got tons of cases we can talk about and everything else, so just let me know.
We'll do that. So thanks again, Dave.
Get Jen on there sometime. She's a fabulous guest.
Okay, we will do have Jen on too. My partner in hauling your merch stuff around at the Mothman Festival.
Oh yeah, I'm there every year, so that's always a good place to catch me. At the Mothman Festival. I'll be at Kecksburg again this year as well. Stan called me tonight, wants me up there, so I'm looking forward to that. That's a great little festival. It's not little, it's actually huge, but it's a great festival, and just check my website, guys. I'm all over the country this year. Yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks again, Dave. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and we'll see you sometime soon with some more fascinating guests. Good night.